But that's not the only story. Because of the very high winds that are expected, particularly in southeastern Pakistan, there is some possibility that some of our generation plants will go offline because of safety concerns. They have to turn themselves off. Some transmission lines which transmit the electricity from these generation plants to the rest of the country, the lines might go out because of high winds. And that's not to forget, not too far from Karachi, we have the Jampeed corridor where we generate wind energy. And beyond a certain velocity, the wind energy, the plants have to be shut down because it's dangerous for them to operate at that very high velocity of wind. So this is just one example, ladies and gentlemen, in which this energy landscape is extremely complex, because of course it is deeply attached to Pakistan's public finances. It is attached to what kind of public policy we make regarding the three major parts of electricity generation, which is of course generation, transmission and distribution. And all three have their own very profound and great challenges, which give us sleepless nights most days. The complexity also comes from not only financial issues, but of course international markets, which we do not control. So RLNG prices, which were extremely high, or in fact RLNG was not available. And why was it not available? Because Ukraine was invaded. So those who deal with energy are at the mercy of so many forces that we do not control. The reason I mention is that it's not just purely a matter of management, ladies and gentlemen. You have to be aware of where the world is going, and you have to adjust accordingly to forces that one does not control. And there is also this issue that one positive part, which Engineer Asghar just pointed out, is that we have this tremendous and profound cooperation from our iron brother China in so many projects that we have had in the past years. We pushed the delayed projects with the effect that, alhamdulillah, we first put into operation the Karot hydroelectric plant, 720 megawatts. Probably our biggest achievement this year was the commercial operation beginning of the Shanghai Tharcoal plant, 1320 megawatts. And of course, the K3 nuclear was also inaugurated, 1100 megawatts. All these projects had been delayed, to my mind criminally, because of mismanagement between 2018 and 22, but we have been able to now, alhamdulillah, all three are operating commercially, providing electricity to you and me daily. So yes, there are some bright spots like CPEC, there are some dark spots like the price of electricity. So we have to walk this very difficult, I would say a swaying tightrope. We have to walk it, because tightrope is not only difficult, it's all being swayed by international winds. So as I said, there are three parts to the energy landscape. But we also have to understand that in Pakistan we have gone through what you might call the 4 ages of power generation. The first age, which was in the 60s and 70s, was the Hydel age, in which we built the 2 large hydroelectric dams at Mangla and Tarbela. And they served us for a long time. But then by the end of 80s, our demand had outstripped our Hydel generation. So in the early 90s, the government at that time did a correct analysis, and they discovered that the oil and diesel were cheap at the time, and the first private producer policy came in, and they started putting up in the early 90s diesel and furnace oil based plants. But as I said, international winds are always blowing. These plants, a decade later, proved to be too expensive because suddenly oil was expensive. And then, of course, the total capacity was also outstripped by demand. So there was search for a new fuel on which we could base our electricity generation. But it took a while. In 2013, again, the government at the time did the same analysis and discovered that the cheapest fuels available at that time were imported coal, one, and second was imported RLNG, that is regasified liquefied natural gas. Good. But I'm delighted to note that because of our iron brother China, we didn't just restrict ourselves to RLNG and to imported coal. The K2 and K3 nuclear plants was also initiated back in 2014, which both are now complete and in commercial production. And of course, another diversification was a restarting of Pakistan's hydel generation plan with the initiation of the Amir Bhasha, Mohammad, Dasu. Some have made more progress than others, but they are currently being constructed. So there was some focus on imported fuel, there was some focus on diversifying the source of electricity generation through nuclear and hydel. But then 2022 came along and totally upturned all our calculations. Now this is something that in the energy field, you have to be ready for. So what did 2022 do? Because of the war in Europe, coal suddenly became 400% more expensive. What do we do? If, coal, which we thought to be was that for the next 20 years will be a cheap source of energy for us, was not horribly expensive. The same thing about RLNG was that when Russia stopped its gas supply to Europe, Europe essentially sucked in all the world's gas. And so not only RLNG became terribly expensive, it was not to be had. It was not available. So when we went to suppliers, they said, okay, please come to us in 2025, then we think about it. Early 2025, think about it. So the conclusion that we drew last year in Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's leadership was, and this I want to put in front of you, is that henceforth, 2022 onwards, all new electricity generation plants in Pakistan will not be based on imported fuel. Let's just say it. I repeat, all new electricity generation in Pakistan will not be based upon imported fuel. So it leaves us, ladies and gentlemen, with 5 sources: solar, wind, hydel, nuclear, and thermal. That's it. That's the menu. Because on the other side, there is this deep balance of payment issues that we have. And we can no longer continue to import tens of billions of dollars of imported fuels just to generate electricity and run our cars So that balance of payments issue is also hitting us severely, has hit us severely in the last year. So these 5 sources are now, for the moment, the future direction of Pakistan's energy. Solar is currently appears cheap and the answer to so many of our prayers. It is an excellent solution, but a limited solution because of, as some of you might know, the intermittency problem, just as wind has the intermittency problem. So you have to have, from where I stand, what is called a base load, which is not buffeted by intermittency problem. You have to run the country on a certain foundation on which electricity that has to be available. Usually, in summer, it's Tarbela that is the base load. And increasingly now, our nuclear plants in the south of the country, they are becoming the base load. So yes, solar is great, and I hope some of the engineers produced by NUST will help us solve not only the intermittency problem, but the harmful issues that large, distributed solar creates in the system. These harmonics are created in the signal, which are a problem, and we have to learn to deal with them as solar increases. At the moment, it's not very large, so the system can handle it. But as more and more people switch to solar, that's another challenge. So solar is not just the all-purpose panacea that we dream it to be. It isn't. It has to be dealt with. Yes, it is currently less expensive. It is a now rapidly modernizing technology that we must benefit from. We just gave an incentive in the current budget being debated in the National Assembly on all the raw materials for solar industry. So now they are duty-free to import. So I hope some of the NUST graduates will begin the first solar panel manufacturing plant in the country. Why not? But yes, it's this issue of a very complex landscape. That's the title of today's conference also. So there are no easy solutions to the problems we face. I could go on for another 15 minutes. I'm not, so be relaxed. On the distribution issues, that is the, what is called in the jargon of the trade, the last mile from the distribution company to your house or to NUST or to offices. That is a whole different ball game in which we not only have to deal with finances and generation, but also the governance, the kind of people we have, the service to the consumers, which is, as I said, that is a really, again, a complex subject, because distribution, ladies and gentlemen, is something through which the policymakers of the energy ministries and the government, we are practically in every street of the country. We have to deal with problems of every street of the country, of every village in the country. Large-scale problems, small-scale problems. We have to deal with farmers, we have to deal with industrialists, domestic consumers, and they have their own issues. I can only share, I hope some of you will do the research, is that where we falter in distribution, which is the north, the west and south of the country, is precisely where we also falter in overall governance of the country. So it's not just a question of, you can say, these corrupt STOs or XCNs, It's not that. So there's a larger question that we have to deal with. And then, of course, I want to put something because it's very graphic, is for you to guide us with your collective wisdom of this grave issues raised by the current policy followed by almost every government in recent years, is what is called tariff equalization, in which all consumers in the country pay the same tariff, regardless of where they are. It sounds very nice, it sounds very egalitarian, but it isn't. It means that those consumers who pay their bills regularly are essentially subsidizing those who are not paying. We are also subsidizing certain areas where the generation has been outsourced, is more expensive, and the result, which I'll put before you, is that due to this equal tariff policy, the people of Pakistan, through their federal government, give the consumers of Karachi, will give the consumers of Karachi, because it is run by Karachi Electric, which is privatized, that's another different argument, is 171 billion in what is called tariff differential subsidy. So you and I are giving our brothers and sisters in Karachi a big box containing 171 billion just so that they pay the same tariff for electricity that we do. And if you compare it to the whole rest of the country, in the same head, we pay 151 billion. But to Karachi, we pay 171 billion. So these are not only, as I said, not only management issues, not only policy mismanagement crisis, or the minister is, incompetent. These are deeply political questions, ladies and gentlemen. So when you are in energy, you have to deal with that also. How long, and I put this question before you, we are subsidizing by the tune of 25 billion our brothers and sisters in the former proper districts.
वफाकी वज़ीर तवानाई इंजीनियर खुर्रम दस्तगीर इस्लामाबाद में तकरीब से खिताब कर रहे हैं। उन्होंने कहा कि हमें बिजली बनाने के लिए अपने वसाइल को इस्तेमाल करना होगा। नाज़रीन, PTV न्यूज़ से फिल वक्त इतना ही।
اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق